A big decision awaits the Cubs, and it's going to happen soon. We tell you about it next.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Matt Cozy, and I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Today's episode is brought to you by our great partners at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. All right, just a reminder on a couple things. Sam and I are doing episodes together this offseason, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I'm solo Thursdays. Sam is solo Fridays. Of course, that's probably pending, breaking news, winter meetings. I'm sure some of that will change, but that's the off-season schedule. And if you haven't voted yet in the Locked On Cubs inaugural awards voting, please do that. The link is in this episode description, and there's a lot of votes in so far. So please make sure to do that. And player of the year and pitcher of the year. So we'll reveal that probably in a couple of weeks, maybe a little less than that. A lot on today's show that having to do with the roster entering the off season, with the flexibility opened up because of free agency starting immediately after the World Series ends, option decisions on a few guys on the team, and it all starts with one guy as the offseason is about to officially begin. And it starts with the pitcher the Cubs chose to avoid starting Game 5 of the NLDS despite being on full rest. Yes, Shota Imanaga has a complicated contract. The Cubs have a complicated decision. And even just 2 months ago, this was on no one's radar. Props to you if it was. But the offseason may indeed begin with some drama, as arguably the Cubs' most popular player may eventually become a free agent and never play here again after just 2 years with the team. Teams around baseball have, within 5 days of the World Series ending, to decide on whether or not to pick up on options they have on players or vice versa, right? If a player has his own option. And I'll get you all the important offseason dates later in the show and logistically how some of that works, because really in the next 4 weeks, the Cubs are going to have a set roster for the offseason. I mean, set is a relative term. But in the next 4 weeks, you have option decisions. You have the non-tender deadline. So there's a lot of movement. And the Cubs have a 3-year club option on Shota that would guarantee him $57.75 million over that span. 20.25 in both 26 and 27, and then 17.25 in 28. If the Cubs exercise this club option, then Shota would also get a full no trade clause. Okay, so that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is if the Cubs decline their option, Imanaga can still remain with the Cubs on his own player option for $15.25 million. If he declines that, he would be eligible for the 1-year qualifying offer, which is projected to be about $22 million. But if either side declines, then Shota would become a free agent. So you have three scenarios there, maybe 4. I'm not sure why Shota would pick up the player option for 15.25. So I don't think I'm going to get into that too much today. Getting all the way to the qualifying offer scenario is interesting because 2026 is such an obvious all-in year for the Cubs that 22 million average annual value shouldn't, it should be doable, shouldn't be a problem. But Shota, like all players, if offered that qualifying offer, he doesn't have to accept that. So there's a lot on the table here, and the headline is this: there is real risk in exercising this club option for 3 more years because it's 3 guaranteed years. It's a full no trade clause. And the reason why there's real risk is because this player, while having a magnificent opening season with the Cubs in 2024, this 2025 season was a completely different story. After 8 starts this year, Imanaga suffered a strained left hamstring that knocked him out for almost 2 months. When he returned, his average fastball velo dipped to 90 miles an hour. His strikeout rate plummeted. His fly ball rate continued to rise. And down the stretch of the season, it went from bad to worse, so much so that in the postseason, the Cubs basically viewed him as an afterthought. So he went from Rookie of the Year candidate, Cy Young candidate 1 year, to by the end of the next season, when real postseason games were happening, he was way, way down on Craig Counsell's card in that Game 5 of the NLDS. And that was because in his last 12 starts down the stretch of the regular season this year, he posted an ERA of 5.17, allowing 20 home runs in 70 innings, the second most in baseball in that span. In the wild card series, the Cubs, remember, used Andrew Kittredge in Game 2 and then went to Shota, who allowed 2 runs on 3 hits, including a homer, and 2 walks in just 4 innings. And then in Game 2 of the NLDS, he allowed 2 more homers, got removed from the game in the 3rd inning. So then basically a full week later, Game 5 rolls around against Milwaukee, and he doesn't start despite being on full rest. And while he did warm up in the bullpen at one point early in the game, it was clear they had no plans to call his number that day. I truly believe that. And really, that's a difficult thing to recap and go through. I always viewed this contract structure as creative. And now it's turned into a giant decision for Jed Hoyer in the front office because of how poorly Shota pitched. And the guaranteed 3 seasons and a full no trade gives me a lot of pause. So I'm going to tell you what I think the Cubs are going to do right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push, which is exactly what the Bulls have done pretty much 3 games in a row, including their last win over the Atlanta Hawks. They're off to a 3-0 start. They opened last week over-under season win total 33.5, and because they won 3 straight to open the campaign, that's up to 37.5. We'll have to keep an eye on that here early in the season. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Shout out to the everydayers, and you could become a Locked On Cubs everydayer by joining us for every episode throughout the week. All right, so three scenarios with Shota Imanaga. The Cubs can pick up a 3-year club option. If that doesn't happen, he has a player option. If he declines that, the Cubs can still offer a 1-year qualifying offer. But if either side decides no thank you on that, then he would become a free agent after 2 seasons on the north side. The scenario with the 3 years and full no trade. Okay, 3 years for, what is it, $57.75 million. I've come to the conclusion I don't think the Cubs do that. I don't think they pick up the club option for 3 years. As I alluded to earlier, I don't think Shota picks up a player option. So then the Cubs could give him the qualifying offer. If he takes it, great. The more pitching, the better. Even on a 1-year, $22 million qualifying offer deal. And again, that financial part of it should not be any strain because 2026 is an all-in year. And later you're going to hear what the payroll is entering the offseason. It's a lot lower than we thought. So if he takes it, great, right? The argument there is the more talent, the more pitching, the better, even for $22 million. And if he doesn't take it, I don't know exactly what to say, but to remember the good times and move forward. Because you then not only have more financial flexibility, but also more incentive to really add impact via free agency, via trade, or both to the starting rotation, which is a rotation that is already good. And for an all-in year that 2026 should be, the Cubs should make moves so that on March 26th, it's not a good rotation. March 26th is opening day. It's not a good rotation on paper, but really it's a great one. I think that's the goal, and it sounds like that's what they're tentatively planning on, is to load up on pitching, maybe make a move or two offensively. Maybe there's a twist or two involved with the position players, but I really think the rotation and the bullpen is going to be the spot they load up. And if this happens, which could be, let's say, game 7 of the World Series, they do go all the way to game 7, I mean. So that's on Saturday. So that means by, let's see, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, by 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central Thursday, these option decisions will have to be made. And so we could be sitting here almost a week from now, and Shota Imanaga is a free agent, or he, with the qualifying offer minutia, we might have a little bit longer to wait. I could give you these key dates now. So everything opens up once the World Series ends. But there's that 5-day window to decide on options and to make qualifying offers. Well, the deadline for the players to accept the qualifying offer is not until November 18th. So not everything will be decided with this player right away. There could be some wait and see time. But man, a lot of implications here. And in some ways, it's really too bad. But he really did pitch that poorly to where this is a major discussion point entering the offseason. And he's not the only one who has an option. Colin Ray also has a club option for $6 million. For me, there's no other way to put this. That's a slam dunk for the Cubs to pick that up. Ray posted a 3.95 ERA in 159 innings this year. His last 5 games down the stretch, he had a 2.63 ERA with 32 strikeouts to only 4 walks and 27 1/3 innings. He pitched well in the postseason. He stepped up in a time of need. He pitched the whole year, basically, in the rotation. And you need depth. You need a guy like him again. And I think Colin Ray should return for 2026. Another club option the Cubs have is Andrew Kittredge. a club option for $9 million with a $1 million buyout. And I think for what his role is at this stage of his career, right? Sixth inning, maybe the seventh, shoot, maybe even the fifth is like a middle closer. I don't think they'll bring him back at that price. So I think Kittredge is gone. Justin Turner has a $10 million mutual option with the $2 million buyout. Why would the Cubs bring Turner back to be on the bench for that much money? I understood it for 2025, but it's hard to see them doing that 2 years in a row, especially at that price. So I'm going to say Turner is gone. And I say Kittredge and Turner are gone, but maybe they re-sign this winter at a more reasonable deal for the team. I guess it's possible, especially in Kittredge's case, but would you be surprised if Turner retired? Not really, right? I think that's certainly on the table. So 4 option decisions, that's not a small number when you look around the league if the Cubs have as the World Series comes to a close and the offseason really begins in earnest. So there's a lot to keep track of. It's been a slow burn here to begin the offseason of shows. I think we did slow play it for a reason. And really because we have the time, the calendar's on our side, and also the Cubs won 96 of their 170 games, including the playoffs. So there's reason to reflect, but we're really close now where it's go time. Sam's going to review Matt Shaw on Friday, and that's it. It's the off season. What moves is this team making to get better for 2026? And that starts the instant the World Series ends, which could be Friday, could be Saturday at the latest. Man, what a big decision with Shota. Again, I don't see them picking up that club option. Maybe he remains with the team on the qualifying offer. The Cubs almost have to do the qualifying offer if it gets there, because then they get compensation via the draft if Shota declines. So, man, it's wild to think about these scenarios. Also, the 40-man roster resets as the offseason begins. The Cubs have 10 players who automatically become free agents. Teams do have exclusive negotiating rights with their own free agents within 5 days of the final game of the World Series. But then after that, every free agent is open to all 30 teams. Those players for the Cubs are Tucker, Castro, and Santana on the position side. And then pitchers Keller, Pomerantz, Thielbar, Brazier, Soroka, Rogers, and Savali. The trade market also opens after the World Series. And again, the deadline for teams to make qualifying offers and option decisions within 5 days. And the qualifying offer deadline for the player is November 18th. Also, the tender deadline is November 21st. And we're going to get more into that later in the show. Next week, I think we should make the case for some of these guys that the Cubs do have an exclusive window to negotiate with, especially Brad Keller and Drew Pomerantz, I would say. I would probably include Caleb Thielbar. It's just hard to decipher the team's thinking, right? Aging relievers. Really, all three are aging. Keller is by far the youngest at 30 right now, but Pomerantz is 36. Thielbar is 39. But they all three had excellent years. I just think there's a strong case to re-sign Keller. There's so much to unpack still on Tucker. We should do that next week as well. The case to re-sign him or the case not to. But maybe you do see an early deal with like a Pomerantz, like 1 year, $4 or $5 million or something like that. We'll see. So coming up next, let's go over the 40-man roster flexibility. And if you haven't heard the approximate payroll number as all of this resets entering this offseason, you're going to hear it for the first time. It's a low number, and I'll just leave it at that for now. So flexibility with the roster and the payroll right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you could play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. When's the best time to use Prize Picks? Well, how about on a football Sunday? How about a NBA weeknight where there's a ton of games? It really keeps it exciting. There's also this new stacks feature that's a game changer. You can now pick more on a player's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Cubs on your preferred audio platform or YouTube. That way you don't miss any of the great Cubs content we've got for you. All right, so the 40-man roster plus Justin Steele, who's on the 60-day IL right now. So the Cubs have 41. Cubs basically have 41 players on the 40-man. Okay, so 10 free agents automatically gone, right? Technically speaking. So that brings you down to 31 players like that. We kept Ray earlier in the show, so he's already a part of that 31. We said goodbye to all of Shota, Kittredge, and Turner. So that takes the Cubs 40-man roster all the way down to 28 players as the offseason begins, and the non-tender deadline is November 21st, and Reese McGuire is likely going to get non-tendered because the Cubs have non-tender, meaning they're not going to offer him a contract, even though he's arbitration eligible. And McGuire is going to be the odd man out there because the Cubs have Carson Kelly, the Cubs have Miguel Amaya, the Cubs have Moises Ballesteros all returning. So that takes you down to 27 players. And I don't mean to laugh, but folks, the regular roster size is 26. And the Cubs are just one player over that in November. A 40-man roster, and on November 21st, they might have 27 players on it. Hello? All this talk about flexibility within the roster, flexibility with finances, and this is before a year where you have to go all in. And it's not just because of the possible lockout in 27, or at least what I'm gathering. I'm putting the puzzle pieces together. I think it will at least be a shortened season. Okay, I'm starting to cool off on the hey, season's canceled thing. I think they'll play, but it's going to be a short year. And the sport might fundamentally change if there's a cap, if there's a floor, if there's other things in the new collective bargaining agreement. So there is that, but really it's because the Cubs themselves should make this personal for them. They have many important players who are entering the last year of their deals in 26. They have a ton of controllable young talent that's not only going to contribute, but play every day. And so this is the time to strike. And so when you hear words like flexibility within the roster and the payroll, they have it. I'm here to report that they have it, and they have a lot of it. And by the way, the 27 players you could still see a few of these dudes, the Cubs saying happy trails to them this offseason, either as a DFA candidate, as moves are made, or in a trade. I have 5 names in front of me, plus one, that would be candidates for that. But again, they're not really strong candidates, at least right now, because the Cubs don't have any players. But those names are Morgan, Hollowell, Little, Neely, and Roberts. These are all pitchers. Plus Ben Brown. I think he's probably a trade candidate this offseason. And could bring back some value, right, if he's part of a larger deal. So the Cubs have so much room for additions, but it's so much room for impact. With all these exits from the 40-man, they have so much room to do things. And if my math is right, and my biggest resource, Fangraphs, their math is right, then the Cubs' luxury tax payroll to start the offseason, so on November 21st-ish, I guess this would be, this would be in the next 7 to 10 days. And then we'll see what happens with Shota if it gets to a qualifying offer. But after the option decisions that I just went through and all these departing free agents, the Cubs' luxury tax payroll to start the offseason will be at about $165 million. The first threshold is 244. That gives the Cubs $79 million to work with in order to build a great 2026 team. We'll see what they do with that. A lot of questions right now. I don't think it's necessarily more questions than answers, right? The Cubs have a lot of good returning, but they certainly have room to get us even that much more excited after what was a good year in 2025. All right, Sam will be back on Friday reviewing Matt Shaw, and then the offseason really begins in earnest when we both talk to you next on Monday. I'm Matt Cozy, and this is Locked On Cubs.